Hi, I'm Gary, and welcome to another episode of Physical Format Rock and Roll, where we talk about all things rock and roll and classic metal. So today's band that I'm going to talk about is the Beatles. So stay with me as I obviously screw something up because it's the Beatles, and we know how knowledgeable and somewhat fanatical the Beatle fans can be. This is an episode of Album Fight. So I'm going to be taking two Beatles records and pitting them against each other. And today is two of the Beatles' most well-loved and most well-known albums. And that is from December 3rd, 1965, we have the amazing Rubber Soul. And from August 5th, 1966, we have Revolver. So, two pretty big albums right there going against each other. Now, I'm going to be talking about the US releases. I realize that both of these albums have different track listings somewhat. If you're talking about the UK version, when Capitol would release these records up through Revolver, they would always change the track listings and alter the albums. Revolver was actually the last one that they did that, and the Beatles finally put a stop to it because by this point they were creating songs specifically for an album. Right around this time, like right after this, like Sgt. Pepper's, obviously, you couldn't change the track listing on that. The whole FM radio was starting to come into play, and around that time period, right after that, in the late 60s and stuff, it became albums, not just singles. So, starting off, we'll talk a little bit about Rubber Soul. Like I said, this was released at the very end of 1965. Now, the US release is pretty different as far as it starts off with I've Just Seen a Face, as where the UK version had Drive My Car. Drive My Car, superior song to I've Just Seen a Face, at least in my opinion. I've Just Seen a Face is a pretty folky song by Paul, which sounds to me very much like Simon and Garfunkel. The Beatles had been influenced by music and artists that they had met in the U.S. during that time, most notably Bob Dylan, who is known to introduce the Beatles into marijuana. And that led to some other things, other drugs, LSD, which would more so influence Revolver than it did Rubber Soul. But I digress. Let's get back to the songs. So I've Just Seen a Face starts out, like I said, that's a folky type song. It's, it's a pretty good song. But next up is Norwegian Wood, which is, in my mind, a masterpiece by John Lennon. I love that song. And George Harrison adds sitar to the song, which I believe is the first time that that was used in a pop song like that. And the effect of it very much adds to it. That's a great song. It was said to be possibly written by about an affair that John Lennon was having at the time. Don't know. But it definitely paints a certain picture of a type of elusive woman that he's trying to capture. Next up is You Won't See Me, Paul McCartney song, which, I don't know, it's just kind of an average Paul McCartney song as far as that goes. Next is George Harrison for Think For Yourself. That's a good song. George is really coming into his own by this point. When you're in a band with John Lennon and Paul McCartney, it's got to be hard to get songs in there. You're talking about the two most prolific songwriters in the history of popular music. So, poor George Harrison. Well, poor George Harrison, yeah. Anyway, you know what I mean as far as trying to get songs on here. The next up would be The Word, which is, that's a pretty nice song. It's got a lot of good harmonies on that song, the way they sing together. I feel like this song, well, both of these albums, obviously, are known to be transitional. Uh, these are important albums as far as how they are shifting music. Rubber Soul still has a bit of the mop top Beatles going on there to it. Revolver, not as much, but it's definitely a shift. The Beatles took their influences, took small parts of other bands, translated it, turned it into their own, and therefore just changed the musical world forever. The next track, of course, you know, a huge track is Michelle, Paul McCartney's song that has been redone by many artists. It's a slower song. I think we're all familiar with that. It's got the parts where he speaks in French. It's a very good song. You know, what's cool about this song too is the, you know, at this time, the Beatles, you know, Lennon and McCartney, even though like one of them might be writing most of the song, one of the other ones might add things to it, change little things, and they're co-writing more. And this is an example. During that part in the song where it's going, I need you, that's John Lennon adding that onto there. And that's, you know, you just think how that doesn't seem like that much, but just think how cool that adds. I mean, how cool the song is after that part is added to it. So those two guys working together, you know, I mean, it's a David Gilmour, Roger Waters type thing, man. It's just they, you know, they go together so well. Next up, let me see, I've lost track here. So on side 2, it's Only Love. Then we go to Girl. I'm looking through you. That's a nice song. That's got like kind of a country kind of sound to it. And then we come up with In My Life, right? One of the Beatles' most well-known songs, most well-loved songs. John wrote this, and you know, this is one of those songs where lyrically, you know, you can just hear the progression from, you know, they're starting out doing songs like She Loves You, Yeah, 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 to a song like In My Life in just such a short period of time. What an amazing change, you know, these story type songs that they would do like that, or that songs that tell a story, that paint a picture. And then we go to Wait, and then Run for Your Life, which is kind of funny when you think of the lyrics to that song compared to In My Life, the different styles there of Lennon. So anyway, there you have Rubber Soul. Fantastic album. Game changer, right? Definitely. A lot of people, you know, this is their favorite Beatles album because of that point of where it is, where it's still some of the, you know, early kind of Beatles mannerisms, but yet how they're changing things and going to something different. Other, you know, a couple songs that they, you know, at this time they're still doing songs on 45s also. So, and it didn't even appear on the album, but they did a 45 to go along with it. We Can Work It Out and Day Tripper on the other side. So, you know, those would have been nice, welcome versions to this songs added to this album. All right, now we go. Not even a year later. This is, you know, Rubber Soul was released in December, the beginning of December, August, after the Beatles actually took a break. Okay, they took a break for a little while. Come back, record Revolver. Wow. You know, bands are sissies now, you know, compared to how they used to be. You look at, you know, this stuff that like the Beatles and the Stones did, and the Who, how, you know, how quickly they recorded albums, or then the hard rock bands of the 70s, Aerosmith and Kiss, just how they crank that stuff out, man. Now you think of how it is now, and you wait years and years for a band to put an album out. So now we're up to Revolver. This would be the Beatles' 7th album. And it is definitely a game changer. If you say that Rubber Soul is, you really have to think that Revolver is. This is the last album that the Beatles released before they stopped touring. They had to stop touring very early in their career. At that point, the world wasn't ready for them to tour, and that the sense of or what they had equipment-wise, they weren't being heard. It was ridiculous. They would play live, people wouldn't hear them. They're just screaming over them. They didn't have the PA and everything to go with them that they needed. So they stopped touring, and when they made Revolver, they pretty much knew in their mind that they weren't going to worry about making songs that they would play live. So there's a lot of songs that they did on here where they knew, hey, we're not going to play this live, and they knew they couldn't. They used the studio as another instrument on this album. This was, like I said, also, this was the last album that Capitol would release where the Beatles would let them screw around with the track listing on it. Some of the things that are so innovative and well-known, groundbreaking about this album is, for one of them, they did artificial double tracking on the recording of this record. So there's a lot of overdubbing, different type styles used to record that hadn't been done before. And then, of course, would be used from this point forward. Think of a song like, Bohemian Rhapsody or something that there's no way it could have been done without this style of recording. Some of the other things recording-wise is the way they recorded the drums. So they came up with the idea of, they moved the mic closer to the bass drum, have the head off of the bass drum, and they put this, well, actually they put a sweater in there that there's a picture out there somewhere. I don't know what it's from. But it has this sweater that all four of the Beatles are in, like it's four necks in this sweater. Well, whoever the engineer was, which I apologize, did not write that down, put this in the bass drum to dampen the song, the sound, which is pretty common now. A lot of drummers will put a pillow or something in their bass drum to do that, so it deadened that sound a bit. The sound that they got for the drums was pretty groundbreaking at that time. If you listen to the drums on Revolver, you can hear how it's different than Ringo's drumming on earlier albums before that. And it was starting to get replicated after this point. And you can notice records how drums started to sound better as things went along around this time period. One of the other things that this album is known for is psychedelia. So the Beatles were starting to, some people say, invent psychedelia, psychedelic music. Now the Yardbirds might argue with you on that. It's all around the same time period. But the Beatles obviously made it famous, and it went from there. There's a lot of experimental type music in here. The album cover itself looks pretty psychedelic. So this album, we start off with a just rip-roaring George Harrison song in Taxman. It's got that 1960s Batman sound to it on the guitar, ripping the government, the British government at the time, for their tax rules that they had. That's something that I really like about Revolver, is George Harrison's stamp on that. As far as talked about on Rubber Soul, how he was stepping up you know, I mean, some of the best songs on this album are the George Harrison songs, and Taxman being one of them. But we go from Taxman into Eleanor Rigby. So Eleanor Rigby, the words in that song, once again, if John Lennon's In My Life words were groundbreaking, Paul McCartney's Eleanor Rigby has to be right there with it. Another song that just paints a picture in your mind. What a beautiful song too, you know. And then to have the quartet there, the you know, the strings that go along with this song with George Martin helping throw that in, just gives it such an amazing feel. And then we come back to another great song of, let me see, I'm sorry, I know what it is. It's Love You Too, but so we're going George Harrison, Paul McCartney, George Harrison, which is a change of pace, right? George Harrison's Love You Too is, you know, I don't know. This has so many good songs. This song, though, would be probably tied for my favorite song on this album. Once again, the sitar in this, just who would think that you could put a sitar in a song and make it such a driving, rocking song? So, you know, right here on side one, George Harrison just has two of his best songs to contribute to this. It's like he's forcing his way into that club of Lennon and McCartney. We go from that to Here, There, and Everywhere. That's a nice song. It kind of has a feel of, you know, older Beatles love type song, but yet it's a little bit different. There's a little more going on there. And then we go to Yellow Submarine. Write a song here. So, you know, I think John Lennon wrote most of this. This was a song that they wrote so Ringo Starr could have one to sing. And he does a great job on his nice kind of monotone singing. This is what I call one of their Monty Python style songs. I feel like when I think of Monty Python, I think of songs like this. And this is also a change of, you know, they have all these sound effects going on in that song, and there's guest stars doing some of the sound effects in there. Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones being one of them. But it's something now, something different that they did. They're adding these songs. Yes, they're kind of jokey style songs, but there's, you know, they're still catchy and there's stuff going on, and it would definitely translate, you know, for a couple of albums into things that they would be doing. You know, I mean, this is definitely a precursor to some of Sgt. Pepper's style of oddball songs that are in there. And then John Lennon singing She Said, She Said. Just a great song. That's a great Lennon song. On there, there's one of your songs that's kind of psychedelic, and you know, the words in here, just talking about death and different things. It's just, you know, one of the songs you got to listen to a few times. And you know, it has a little bit of the old Beatles style singing in it, but the music is different. Just one of those groundbreaking style songs. Starting off on side two, we have Good Day Sunshine. Probably, in my mind, the weakest song on this album. My least favorite song, I guess I should say. Maybe not the weakest one. Just my opinion. All this is just my opinion. Then you have For No One, which, that's another good one. You know, that's kind of, you know, along the lines of Eleanor Rigby or something like that. Very thought-provoking style song by McCartney. And then I Want to Tell You, another George Harrison song, another good one. That's just a nice, good driving rock song on here that really, his songs really help propel this album. And that's another one. And then you come up with Paul McCartney doing Got to Get You Into My Life, which is kind of like a Fun Time Souls song, right? It's totally different than anything else on this album, and it's just really catchy. Just a good, catchy song. I've heard him do it live, like, you know, with Wings, and he does a really good job doing that song live. It adds more punch to it and everything. That's a good song. And then the final track on this album of John Lennon doing Tomorrow Never Knows. Now here is your definite psychedelic song here. This sounds like it could have been a something off Electric Ladyland by Jimi Hendrix. This is another great song, and here we have the psychedelic song that, you know, now this might sound dated to some people, not to me. Sounds great. This is the song that I said ties with Love You Too as my favorite songs off of this brilliant album here. And it's a great way to close this album. I know I said how Capitol messes up with their track listing or whatever, but the fact that this album ends with that song is perfect. That's, out of any of these songs, that should be the one that would finish this album. So anyway, this is Album Fight, right? I picked two albums, pit them against each other. I always say it has to be albums that are somewhat similar, have something in common. Both of these are by the Beatles, and they're both considered groundbreaking albums. This is the transition from the Mop Tops to the Thinking Man's rock and roll band. So which one's the best? Well, in my mind, like I say, I'm going by the US releases. I realize on Rubber Soul, you know, maybe the UK version is superior to the US version in the track list, which it is. I got to go with Revolver. Not only is Revolver easily, in my mind, one of the Beatles' best albums, it's just one of the best albums. This is a great album. This is a 5-star record. I love Rubber Soul. I do. But it just has never matched up to me. It's never moved me, I guess I should say, the way that this has. Now, this has a couple of my favorite Beatles songs on here. Like I said, Norwegian Wood and In My Life. Those are great ones. But, you know, some of the other songs are, in my mind, are just kind of mediocre on that album. And there's only one weak song on this one. So, my album fight pick is Revolver by the Beatles from 1966 with a split decision over Rubber Soul. I appreciate anybody who has watched this video, and if you'd like to make any comments, what's your opinion on these two albums, by all means, let's see you type in below, and anybody that would like to subscribe to this, that would be fantastic. I'm Gary, and until the next time.